It's showtime, everybody! Showtime!
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is a slightly different kind of video because it's not really about books, although books are heavily involved because of the scripts that you get. But this is a video about theatre. And this is bouncing off the discussion that's happening at the moment. And at the moment means August the 9th, because I'm going to be posting this afterwards. But at the moment, there's been a few videos come up about the best media to be used for storytelling. So it kicked off with Ollie from Criminally, who's the creator of Garb August. And it's Garb August related because he was talking about the fact that we prefer certain types of storytelling more than others, or at least it's more respected. And it's a really good video. I'll put the link below to his video. And I immediately wanted to do one on songs, because narrative songs was something he didn't touch on at all. I think they're a big part of storytelling as well, and they've been around since the year dot. And Nick from another BookTube channel did a really good video about how he thinks movies are actually more respected by the general public, because if they read a good book, they always say, oh, they should make a movie out of it. And kind of he argues that that's like the height of compliment for a film to be made of the book, which I think is a really interesting argument. I think it's got a lot of he's got a lot of weight to that. And then today, Heather from Heather Reads posted one about theatre, a really good video about theatre, which I'll link below as well. And it was something that completely galvanised me in something that I was going to do anyway. I'll tell you why I was going to do it in a second, but I wanted to do a video about theatre. So I kept changing my mind about how I wanted to do it, but I wanted to do something to mark the fact that after a big gap, starting from September, I'll be teaching performing arts again. So I did it for 2 years, a number of years ago, doing it again next year. And just in general, I was before this even happened, like middle of last year, I was kind of interested in doing a video about theatre, because I do have a history of studying theatre when I was a student at college, and that's what I wanted to be, an actor when I was like in my late teens. That's what I wanted to do, and I was given the main roles in the plays that were happening. I was definitely really into it. I was given the support and the encouragement and the platform to think I could do really well with it, but it wasn't to be. But I definitely have an affinity with it, and I definitely relate to it, and I want to talk about it because theatre is a very special experience for the theatre goer, as well as the performers and the technicians and the director and the writers and all the people involved in theatre. It's a very special experience for everyone involved, and it encompasses so much stuff. So it encompasses, obviously, the writing element is the initial part of the ideas of the play, and sort of the core of the meaning of the play, and blah 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 blah. The director can do so much with how that is then interpreted and put onto the stage, how it's staged, and how the accent during the scene changes. The focus of the scene, all sorts of things can change from a director. So that's a really interesting element to it. And obviously the acting is a big deal. And I think probably for an average Joe, they kind of judge a theatre production from the acting point of view first, and they remember the actors, and they probably can reel off lots of names of actors, and not as many writers and directors probably. Certainly not as many technicians. But those technicians are obviously really important as well, and there's been some great innovations in the technical side of theatre as well. So it's an amazing immersive experience that is live. So at the moment that it happens, it's happening around you, and it's not like watching something on a screen, or when you read a book, you're going into it a number of different times, and you'll be going into that book with different moods, different trains of thought, different distractions, no distractions sometimes. But going into a book is a different experience, because you're a different person each time you go into that book. And it takes you a number of different visits to finish a book. With a theatre production, you get all of that instant all those sensations and all those feelings and those emotions and the experience you get from watching a film or from playing a game or hearing a song, but it's live at that moment, and it's got all of those different elements to it, including songs. So a lot of them have got, one of the things I want to talk about has got songs. So it's a really interesting experience that I think we all understand how important and how much longevity it's got and all that sort of stuff. We all get that, but it's probably something that's not talked about that much. I haven't seen it talked about that much on YouTube. So I wanted to talk about a few different productions that have impacted my life that I've always remembered. And actually it goes right back to 1988. And the most recent one, just looking at my notes, is 2019. So quite a recent one from that point of view. But yeah, so the 1988 one, I watched that when I was a student as well. So I was really interested in, my radar was up in the sense of thinking about what kind of actor I would be, what kind of production team would I want to be part of, what kind of company would I want to be part of. And this particular company I want to talk about now, I'll start with, they formed in 1981, and they've got a really specific aesthetic to what they do, and a kind of a sort of a style that they've developed, and they've now become practitioners. So when I talked about, that I can look at a particular practitioner with the students later on in the year, they are a practitioner I could choose. And this is the Trestle Theatre Company. The Trestle Theatre Company specialise in masks, and they design these really powerful, fantastic masks that are part of the delivery of these really emotional, often powerful and thought-provoking plays that they do. And those masks have got so much power in them anyway. And it's a very different performance technique to perform with masks anyway. And in particular, in 1988, I saw this play called Top Story, and it was based on a poem by Stevie Smith called Croft, which is it's very short. It's only a 9-word poem, which is just aloft in the loft sits Croft, he is soft. And they built this story around this poem about this old man and his brother visits the house, and it kicks up and like an anthill of past memories and something they'd kind of from their past that they buried. And it's a really powerful play, but the masks were a big feature in how they delivered the play. So I think they're fantastic, and they really do show a really interesting way of performing. So that's the Trestle Theatre Company. Never forget that experience. And then in 1989, so only shortly after that, I saw a performance that was like the culmination of lots of studies I'd done on Brecht. So Bertolt Brecht was born in 1898, and he was a Marxist, and he wanted to have this sort of political approach to theatre. And he rallied against the idea of people going to the theatre and just turning their brain off and kind of being a passive participant in something that was just sort of thrown at them. And Brecht felt really passionately about the audience being a part of it and them learning something through it or having something to think about through it. And he came up with this idea of didactic theatre and talked about the suspension of disbelief, and that he wanted his plays to frequently remind the audience member that they were suspending their disbelief. So part of that sort of fourth wall thing that, in Brecht's words, meant that they weren't being so passive. So it's a really interesting way of looking at theatre. And in the 1940s, he did his most kind of renowned and legendary plays. So things like Mother Courage, and The Good Person Szechuan, and The Caucasian Chalk Circle, 3 of the big ones. And I saw The Good Person Szechuan in the National Theatre with Fiona Shaw playing the titular character, The Good Person Szechuan. It was an amazing experience, very powerful experience. This is about essentially a good person that is constantly doing good things to the point where it becomes detrimental to everyone around her and herself. And it's a really interesting, thought-provoking statement about life and what you can do as a good person. So that was a really cool experience that I'll never forget again. And but even when I saw Fiona Shaw recently appear on Andor recently, the Star Wars series, it was really great because I immediately thought about her playing the good person in The Good Person Sachuan. So it really did stay in that memory, which is fantastic. So in 2004, I bought me and my wife tickets to see something that I thought was going to be good. Because I love the film, and I thought, oh, this would be a really interesting thing to see. I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and this was a stage production of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, starring Christian Slater as Jack Nicholson's character, McMurphy, and Frances Barber was Nurse Ratched, and Mackenzie Crook, famous in The Office and the Pirates of the Caribbean films, and now the Detectorists. Mackenzie Crook played Billy. He was amazing as Billy. It was absolutely brilliant. But Christian Slater was brilliant. And funnily enough, I expected him to do an impression of Jack Nicholson because he was quite famous for being able to do a Jack Nicholson impression. But he didn't at all. He did his own take on it, and it was fantastic. It was really, really good. And it remains easily one of my favourite experiences in the theatre. And actually, some of the other characters were played by comedians. And that was kind of an interesting dynamic to the performance as well. But yeah, I absolutely loved that. Played One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I love the film. I've got the book upstairs I need to read. So as soon as these book events are over, I'm going to read One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. But yeah, amazing play. It's in London. I think it was the Olivier Theatre, but it was in London. It was absolutely amazing. 2004. So in 2010, I wanted to talk about something that's a little bit different to what I've spoken about so far. So all of these have been very serious, quite academic approaches to theatre, and this is a musical, a very popular musical, but again very powerful. It had me in tears. To be fair, the film version of this musical has me in tears every time I see it, and that's Hairspray. So the 2010 version of Hairspray that I saw, it was with Michael Ball and Les Dennis were the two really famous people that were in it, and they were really good. But I just think it's such a powerful musical. The songs, Run and Tell That in particular, that's the song that gets me really emotional. It's a really good story that encompasses lots of different angles on the race issue in the 60s, and the race issue still occurs now. It's still something that boils my blood, and it's something that it's just done so beautifully. And when they're singing Run and Tell That, and when you got that song in the middle, I can't remember what the song's called. There's another song in the middle that gets me really emotional as well. But it's the race angle in that play that is so fantastic. It's so well done. It's so powerful. So Hairspray, I love Hairspray for that reason. I mean, I love rock and roll and R&B anyway. So obviously, I'm going to love the songs, but it's the powerful nature of this. And actually, it's funny because Run and Tell That affects me. I know the other song. Oh, there's the other song right at the end. No, Run and Tell That is the one in the middle of the play. I'm just remembering now. The one at the end is the You Can't Stop the Beat. You Can't Stop the Beat. That's the one that also makes me cry because it's saying you can't stop people rallying against racism. You can't stop people mixing. You can't stop mixed couples. You can't stop integration. Just that phrase, you can't stop integration. It's just, it's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, this isn't a line from the film, but just me saying it. And when you're in the theatre and you're hearing it as well, it's that much more powerful. That's the thing about theatre. So yeah, You Can't Stop the Beat really gets me going. And funnily enough, I was going to say it's interesting that those two songs get me going more than I Know Where I've Been, which my students have done lots of times. I love that song. It's such a powerful song. But I think it's the joyous, upbeat nature of the other songs that lift me up as well and get the adrenaline going as well, and that sort of heightens the emotion as well, I think. So yeah, Hairspray 2010. I saw it, a fantastic production with Michael Ball's done it a couple of times as well. He did it recently as well. So yeah, amazing stuff. And then I want to go on to the last thing I wanted to talk about, which was from 2019. And this was a present for me, and I didn't know this existed. This was an absolute revelation. And if you've seen my channel much, then you'll know that I'm a huge fan of The Twilight Zone. I'm a massive, massive fan of The Twilight Zone. And I've talked about it quite a lot on the channel. And there was a live performance of The Twilight Zone, which is crazy. It was adapted by somebody called Anne Washburn. She wrote the script. And what she did was she combined 8 different stories and interwove them, which is quite clever. So they're quite famous stories. So some of the most popular stories. And the stories were written by the 3 big writers of The Twilight Zone. So Rod Serling, Richard Matheson and Charles Beaumont were all contributors to these 8 stories. And it was stories like Little Girl Lost and The Shelter, which was so powerful, that bit. And Will the Real Martian Stand Up? Those kind of stories. There was 8 stories in all, and it was only 10 actors, and they all kind of changed characters through the play. And it was so good. It was really good, and I think they probably spent the most time on The Shelter, because it was a really good examination on racism and the way that the neighbourhood turned when there was only a certain amount of room in the shelter. And it was like, well, I've lived here all my life. Well, I haven't lived here all my life, but I deserve to be in the shelter more than you because of blah, 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 you know. Absolutely amazing. And it was such a good production. It really was a powerful, fantastic production. And again, seeing something like that live with the production design was amazing. The stage design, the lighting, and the way that they created the feel of the Twilight Zone on stage was just phenomenal. So yeah. There's some examples of some theatre that's really moved me. I could have gone on for longer and talked about different experiences I've had, and actually some experiences I've had doing it when I was younger. But yeah, it's quite an incredible art form, and there's so many different ways of approaching it, and that goes way back to the year dot as well. So yeah, please comment below on what your favourite theatre experiences are. I'd love to hear about them. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye.
Paint me a picture